Hello everyone. First of all, we'll go ahead and get started. Video going over the slides. We're towards the end of the 8-week session, so not as much to do this week. Most of you should be getting your observations finished up and getting them ready to turn in. Remember, if you have questions, always better to ask them now than after they're turned in, so go ahead and email me if you have any questions. Chapter 11 is on attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, health impairments, and physical disabilities. The next two slides will show we're going to be able to define ADHD. You'll be able to define physical disabilities and health impairments. You'll be able to state two reasons why the number of children placed under OHI or orthopedic impairments categories of the IDEA is much smaller than the actual number of children who have the health impairments or physical disabilities at the end. You'll also be able to list and describe the types and causes of health conditions and physical impairments seen most frequently in school-age children, and briefly explain how the severity, age of onset, and visibility of health impairment or a physical disability can affect a child's educational performance. And also discuss the importance of parallel curriculum for students with health. Finally, you'll be able to explain why the continuum of educational services and placement options is especially critical for students with health impairments or physical disabilities. One of the first things I want you to do is see if you can answer this question. How might the effects of an acute health condition on a student's classroom participation and education progress differ from those of a chronic condition? So you've got a chronic condition. Take a few moments and give it a guess. Write down a few things on a piece of paper, and then so go ahead and hit pause, and then you can turn around and hit play once you have some written down. Alrighty. Most physical disabilities and health impairments that result in a child receiving special ed service are chronic conditions, meaning they are long-lasting or permanent, like cerebral palsy. However, they are typically short-term, like pneumonia. A child who has an acute condition may have limited participation in educational progress, but only temporarily. For example, a child who falls behind due to acute illness may need remediation to help him catch up, where a child with a chronic condition is unlikely to require long-term services of appropriate, is likely to require long-term services. So, acute condition, it's short-term, something they're going to get over within a couple weeks or a month. Where you've got chronic conditions, those are going to last forever, for a long period of time. ADHD definition and diagnosis. There are 3 ADHD subtypes, combined predominantly in attention and must exhibit 6 or more symptoms for at least 6 months in 2 or more environments for the ADHD to be diagnosed. 55% of the ADHD students or adults have the combined type, with 27% predominantly inattentive and 18% have the hyperactivity impulsive disability there. Special education and prevalence. Children with ADHD can be served under the other health impairments category or under Section 504. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. APA estimates the prevalence of ADHD at 5% of children. Boys are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD than girls, and you'll notice we've had several other categories where boys seem to be more predominant. This is another one. The ratio is higher. A large proportion of the 779,000 children who received special ed services in 2012 under the OHI category were diagnosed with ADHD. It is something that typically it's something that is a doctor diagnoses, and then the team then, if that's what he or she does have, then the team would, again, as they were going through the evaluation process, ask for medical information to back that up, and then put it in the file, and then continue on with seeing whether a student, because one thing that I've seen common in this one, and I've seen, I don't know how many teachers ask the same question, they will see that a student has ADHD on the computer screen or going through records, and they'll automatically assume that that student, that child, is a student with a special education case manager, or, as this said, maybe a 504. But remember, it has to have a negative effect on that educational performance. And there are some students that still do well and don't really need to have that special education service, and some don't even need to have the 504 also. Now, I also want to clarify, 504 is not a special education area. A 504 is a regular education area, and this is one of the things that, as a process coordinator, I had several teachers not understand what this meant. What it means is if a student does not qualify for special education services and has ADHD, the family and teachers may decide to put them on a 504 plan. A 504 plan has similar accommodations that can be done to assist the student better in the classes. However, those accommodations are done in the regular education setting. It does not involve any of the teachers that are special education teachers. So if they have testing in a smaller area, or testing in small groups, or need to have a different environment for testing, you're going to find a classroom that they could do this in, or the library that they could do this in, but it's not going to be anything that involves a special education teacher. It is not a special education area, so I want to make that perfectly clear. There are many times I tried to make it perfectly clear in a meeting, and then 2 or 3 weeks later I find out from a special ed teacher that, so-and-so brought this kiddo down, give me a name, and said that they needed to come to my room for assistance. And sure enough, it was a student that we realized and tried to get them help in a special ed room. They're not the same thing. So just a little bit of information. Academic achievement and comorbidity, the nice word. Most children with ADHD struggle in the classroom. They score lower on tests of academic achievement, earn lower grades in school, and have more difficulty with skills that support academic achievement. There is also a comorbidity with some other disabilities, like EBD, ID, LD, autism, tic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder. Okay, so that's why it talked about earlier on, excuse me, that there is a lot less students in the OHI category than what have ADHD, because they can have autism or ID or any of the other ones, so that they may be actually in another category and still have ADHD. So that's one of the things. ADHD, the causes are not well understood. There's no clear, consistent evidence that links brain damage or dysfunction to behavioral symptoms of ADHD. Evidence indicates actually that genetic factors may place individuals at a greater risk, and research using neuroimaging technology has shown that some individuals with ADHD have structural or biochemical differences in their brain. So those are some of the causes. The treatment, one of the main treatments is medication. They prescribe a stimulant, is the most common intervention. There's no clear evidence that indicates stimulant medications lead to improved academic achievement. I'll come back to talk about medication-based intervention like applied behavior analysis. So you'll want to look at that in the textbook, get a little more information about applied behavior analysis. It will be on the test coming up, or the quiz. Teaching self-regulation and self-monitoring skills are also part of that behavior base. Now let's go back to medication. Couple things. First of all, medication is not the cure-all. A lot of teachers will get very upset when they've got a student that is ADHD and maybe even some other options and not on meds, because they go, meds would help the child. Can't you see that, you know, he can't concentrate? He can't, well,